From Los Angeles, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand. Thanks for joining us for the Puck Podcast. This is our first period of a 3-period podcast. In the first period, which some of you are watching on YouTube, we are recapping the past week of the NHL on and off the ice. Our second period is our interview or special feature segment. This week, Doug talks with longtime voice of the Nashville Predators, Pete Weber. And our third period is our fan feedback segment where we read listener emails and talk about what's going on in our lives. You can find all 3 periods on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. If you like what you're seeing on YouTube, please subscribe. It takes a second, but makes a big difference for us. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. At last check, we were at 684. If you would like to give us a Christmas gift, just hit that subscribe button. If you do, you'll not only get this show, but also the Puck Podcast Hockey Minute. Each weekday, it recaps the night in the NHL and previews the next night's action.
And as he said, I am a Ducks fan. He's a Kings fan. We've worked in sports media for over 30 years combined at a variety of networks, but our passion is hockey, and we've been putting out the Puck Podcast every week for over 18 years and counting, every single week except for one, and we had a good reason that week. That was through lockouts and everything. So we've been going a while, and we're going to tell you about every game. We cover all 32 teams. We're going to tell you about every game of the past 7 days, but we start with our headlines. And we thought we might see a coach fired this week. Eddie certainly did. He was hoping one would be fired because he really does not like Lindy Ruff. But that did not happen. Maybe the owners and GMs were filled with the Christmas spirit, and maybe they simply didn't want to have to write another check for the replacement person before the end of the fiscal year. Who knows? But we did have a couple of trades before the holiday roster freeze, which went into effect this past Thursday, December 19th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. I can't imagine there was a team frantically working the phones at 11:58, but you never know. And there is no roster moves at all until Saturday, December 28th at 12:01 a.m. Eastern. So for the headlines, which is where we start, I turn it over to my good friend and the man that has driven this show as the Ron McLean for many years, Eddie Garcia.
Well, thank you, Doug. And for the record, I have nothing against Lindy Ruff, but we are going to talk about a New York team, and that is, of course, a team we've been talking a lot about over the past few weeks, and that is the New York Rangers, who did make a trade as they shipped out forward Kappo Kaako, the former number 2 overall pick in the 2019 draft. They sent him to the Seattle Kraken in exchange for defenseman Will Borgen, a 2025 third-round pick, and a 2025 sixth-round pick. Kaako is 23 years old. He had 61 goals and 131 points in 330 games with the Rangers, but only 4 goals and 14 points in 30 games this season. He'd been the subject of multiple trade rumors over the past 2 years, but did sign a 1-year, $2.4 million restricted free agent deal this past spring. Kaako was a healthy scratch against the St. Louis Blues on Sunday before being traded away. He is a pending RFA again after this season. Borgen is 28. He's a right-shot defenseman whom Seattle selected from Buffalo in the 2021 expansion draft. He is only 1 season removed from posting a career high 25 points for the Kraken. This season, though, just 2 points in 34 games. Borgen is making $2.7 million in the final year of a contract before becoming an unrestricted free agent next summer. Doug, your thoughts on the Rangers trying to shake things up by sending Kappo Kaako to Seattle?
Well, I don't think this was the answer. I think it was less about trading Kappo Kaako than getting Will Borgen, honestly. I think they were looking to get a change on defense. I think they have enough offense, and I think they know they have enough offensive stars and production if everyone is playing to their potential. Kaako is one of many players that has underachieved so far this season with just the 4 goals in 30 games, but the potential is there. I love this trade for Seattle to get a guy that was the former number 2 overall pick, is only 23 years old, has a lot of NHL experience. Adding him to your roster with what you already had and the waiver claim that they had on Eli Tolvanen last year, adding him for free has given them an infusion of young talent that I think has the potential to really pay dividends for very little cost, really. Will Borgen is not a bad player, but he's certainly not a guy that you would think is highly sought after. He's a right-hand shot defenseman, which are more sought after than left-hand shot defensemen. And he plays well in most situations. He's a guy that's kind of an all-around guy, but they have everything they need. I think this kind of replaces Jacob Trouba at a lower cost, right? They had Trouba as a right-hand shot defenseman. They lost him, obviously, because they needed to free up the money to sign Shesterkin. This replaces him in the lineup. Kaako's contract goes out to make it all fit under the cap. And it was a guy that they felt was expendable. And we will see if that ends up being the case long term, if he truly was expendable. But like I said, I really like this trade for Seattle. I don't think it's for this season for the Kraken, certainly, but the guy is 23 years old, and they can potentially have him for another 5 to 7 years playing at his prime. And at the cost of Will Borgen, a third and a sixth, I'm okay with taking that risk if I'm Seattle. And I really liked this deal for the Kraken. I don't really understand it for the Rangers other than making some changes. Their struggles seem to be a lot more baked into the roster as a whole than an individual player. They're not playing a good team defense game. They're not playing well. They're not getting the offensive production they thought they were getting from a lot of players. And until that changes, until the entire team plays better defensively, until the players that they are paying big money to start producing goals, nothing's really going to change as far as their win-losses. So not dramatically, at least. So I didn't think this was a big move for the Rangers. It's certainly not going to fix their ills, but I really liked this trade for Seattle. If I was a Kraken fan, I would have been very happy to see this deal go down.
And there was one other trade to mention, certainly didn't involve the former number 2 overall pick, but one struggling team made a deal, the Rangers, and another one, the Nashville Predators, playing a little bit better of late, but they decided to make a move as well as they shipped out defenseman Alexander Carrier. He goes to the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for defenseman Justin Barron. Carrier's 28, had 7 points, 1 goal, 6 assists at the time of the deal, 247 career games for Montreal and Nashville. He had 70 points last season, signed a 3-year deal worth $11.25 million. Barron's 23, had 1 goal, no assists at the time of the trade, 111 career games for the Avalanche and Canadiens, 31 career points, has 2 more years left on a deal at $1.15 million cap hit per year, and he can be a restricted free agent at the end of this contract.
I don't expect us to be talking about either one of those names ever again on this show unless they're getting suspended. I don't think they're impact players for either team. I think it's a matter of getting somebody that is a little bit of contract maneuvers down the road with an expiring deal as opposed to somebody you have under contract for years to come. A little bit of cost certainty for the Predators to have a guy that can plug in at the bottom of your lineup if needed at best. But I don't expect this to be an impact deal for either team.
All right, we're going to pass along some other news and notes coming up, but it's time to recap all of the games from the past 7 days in the NHL. If you're an NHL fan, we are going to talk about your team. Now, some games are just a quick score and a note. Others will get more in-depth in. But we start last Monday, where we had 3 games on the schedule and started with a great game, probably the game of the week. And that was a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup final as the defending champion Panthers won a thriller in Edmonton over the Oilers 6-5. Florida outscoring Edmonton 3-1 in the third period to pull away for the victory. In a rematch of 2 of the top scorers, or in a matchup of 2 of the top scorers in the league, the Oilers' Leon Draisaitl did score his NHL-leading 23rd goal of the season in the loss. Florida's Sam Reinhart gets his 20th of the year. Edmonton star Connor McDavid had 3 assists in the loss, which snapped the Oilers' 5-game winning streak. With the win, Florida moved into a tie with the Maple Leafs for the most points in the Atlantic Division with 40.
This felt very similar to the Stanley Cup final of last year, where the Oilers got offensive production, simply could not stop the Panthers when they needed to. The Panthers made 1 save more than the Oilers over the course of the game. And Reinhart with his 20th already. My goodness, if you thought last year was kind of a fluke or can he follow it up, he's got 20 before the end of the year. It's crazy that he's off to such a good start yet again. And you mentioned Leon Draisaitl scoring a goal. Connor McDavid, by the way, got his 50th career 3-assist game. And his assist on Leon Draisaitl's goal was the 200th time that he has assisted on a Draisaitl goal, which is only the 7th time in NHL history that a player has assisted on a single teammate's goal 200 or more times. We have the board up, the stat up on YouTube if you're watching there. But I will just read real quick that the names ahead of him are almost all absolute legends and Hall of Famers. In fact, they are. They're all in the Hall of Fame or are going to the Hall of Fame. But what stood out to me on this list, Eddie, as you look at it, is the number 1 is Wayne Gretzky assisted on a Jari Kurri goal 364 times. And Yari Curry assisted on a Wayne Gretzky goal 196 times. The chemistry between those two, the puck going back and forth, it ended up in the net almost 600 times. And that is amazing chemistry between those two. That stood out to me looking at this list. And the other one was the brotherly love of Vancouver that they enjoyed for so many years. Daniel Sedin and Henrik Sedin, 280 assists from Henrik to Daniel before it found the back of the net. So fun stat to look at there. And as you look at it, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, 7th all time. They're going to catch Mike Bossy and Brian Trottier maybe by the end of this week. As far as as we recap, I'd have to go back and check it, but they will be catching and passing them very soon, and then passing and catching Alex Delvecchio and Gordie Howe very soon. And then after that, it's only 4 people ahead of you. And Alex Ovechkin and Nick Backstrom, the Sedin brothers, and then the legendary Brian Trottier, Mike Bossy, Wayne Gretzky, Yari Curry. So historic names, and they are a historic pair. If they stay together long enough, do you think they have a chance to break the Gretzky-Curry record?
Yeah, I actually think they do. McDavid's contract is coming up, I think, after next season. Draisaitl signed long term. They're going to re-sign Connor McDavid, of course. So
right.
I would expect many, many more years of Draisaitl and McDavid to, especially on their power play, to be connecting. Unfortunately, as a fan of a team that's in the same division as them.
Right. If you don't like the Oilers, you got a long time to wait before they're a bad team. Let's put it that way.
We'll echo a comment I saw on our Facebook page. Somebody, I can't remember who it was. I apologize if I don't remember the name, but they're saying, too bad that this wasn't a nationally televised game, because this would have been a great game to feature on TNT or as an ESPN cross the board game, not ESPN Plus, because this game had a lot of juice to it and it really delivered. It was a hell of a game. One thing, though, I would like to mention that's a little bit crazy. I don't want to get too bogged down on it, but I wanted to throw it out there. Sam Reinhart's goal. I don't know if you saw it, Doug. It went off the head of Oilers goalie Stuart Skinner, and he was shaken up on the play, and he didn't leave the game. But it did put something in my head, and I just wonder, it's a kind of a crazy idea. Should the NHL outlaw players intentionally shooting the puck at the goaltenders' heads to try and score a goal?
Well, he scored from below the goal line, so he was behind Skinner.
Right.
And he absolutely did intentionally bank it off. I don't know if it was intentionally off the head, but he was shooting to bank it off the goalie.
Well,
because he knew he was behind him.
I think it was intentionally doing off the head. And we see players do this.
Yes.
Sidney Crosby does this a lot. Obviously, you got to be a pretty skilled player to be able to do it regardless. But it does, in the era of concussions, I know they're wearing masks, but getting a puck at high velocity off your head if you're a goalie can still make you see stars. And as we know, that actually does mean some form of a concussion. Maybe it's a slight concussion when you see stars or whatever. But it just made me think, is that really something we want to be doing in this new world that we are? And I'm all for violence, and I think there's no taking certain collisions and hits and things like that out of all contact sports. But it did make me wonder, is that a crazy idea to say, almost like intentionally kicking in a puck with a skate is a safety reason, right? They didn't want you swinging your skates around. Maybe it should be outlawed. Maybe a goal should not be allowed to count if you intentionally shoot it off the goalie's head.
Well, the problem is determining what intent was. I think it would be almost impossible to determine that he intentionally shot it off the head.
I don't think so, because you even described it. He was definitely trying to shoot it off his head. And when we see
he was trying to shoot it off the goalie. That's my point. To say he specifically was targeting the head is going to be impossible. He could be aiming for the back. He could be aiming for the side.
But how often does that happen? How often do you throw it off the goalie's back and in? It's usually, they do this to the head a lot. I think you can tell. I really do. I think you can tell when the players are doing it on purpose.
In a sport that is having enough issues scoring goals, I'm not looking to take scoring opportunities away. I don't think it's often enough that it needs to be legislated out. And I think the opportunity for misinterpretation of intention is too great for them to wave off a goal by a player simply trying to forward or get the puck to the center of the ice. the curve of the stick. He gets it gets up too high, and then the referee says, nope, that was intentionally shooting at his head. The guy's like, you're out of your mind. I was throwing it to the front of the net for a deflection. It happened to hit the guy in the head. No. And the goalies will also use that to their advantage by heading a puck and then being like, oh, that's the stoppage of play because he intentionally shot it at my head. So face off outside the zone. We know that they do that as well. We know that the goalies will intentionally do things to get calls and get stoppages of play. So I'm not in favor of that. I know what you're saying. Skinner was not hurt on the play. And I also don't think, I get that these guys can wrist the puck with great velocity these days, but I don't think it's of a velocity that it needs to be legislated out to the point you're saying. I don't think it's that high. Slap shots, yeah. I don't think you're going to see too many slap shots intentionally at the head. But a wrist shot at the head, I don't think has enough velocity with the helmet, with the gear they have, to make it something that needs to be legislated out, in my opinion.
All right. Well, moving on. Also on Monday, we had a battle of the best road team in the NHL against the top home team in the league. That was the Stars, knocking off the Capitals 3-1. Dallas, the best home team, Washington, the best road team. That snapped Washington's franchise record 10-game road winning streak, as well as their 9-game point streak. Rempe Hintz had a pair of goals for Dallas, who improved to 13-3-0 at home. Despite the loss, so Capitals still playing well without Alexander Ovechkin, 8-3-1 at that point. And Ovechkin had joined the Capitals on their road trip. He's skating in practice, non-contact jersey, and the expectation is he'll be back in the lineup for the Capitals after the Christmas break.
Looks like the Capitals will be unwrapping the Great Eight under their tree this holiday season and have him back, which is amazing. It's ahead of schedule. We were looking at the time frame originally and thought this may impact his ability to chase down Gretzky this season. If he's back by January 1st, there's a good opportunity that he will be able to track down Gretzky this season. We could have a thrilling goal chase in the final weeks of the season. That would be awesome. Hopefully, to your point earlier about the Panthers and Oilers game, it will be nationally televised, and we won't have games buried on ESPN Plus if you have that. And I get what you're saying on the Panthers Oilers. The problem is TNT has certain nights that they can broadcast games. They can't just pick up a game and say, we'd like to broadcast this game nationally. And ESPN is committed to so many different things. And with college basketball and the NBA in full swing, and then they have Monday Night Football, that just was not going to happen. So I get what you're saying, but it was an unfortunate night for probably the best night at the game of the, as you said, but that's also on the NHL. They got to find a way to not schedule that up against Monday Night Football. Get that game on a Tuesday. What's wrong with the next day? It's a Stanley Cup final rematch. It's going to be highly sought after by fans across the league. Put that game on a Tuesday rather than up against Monday Night Football.
Canucks beat the Avalanche 3-1 behind Kiefer Sherwood's 3 goals, his first NHL hat trick, also a natural hat trick. We talked about on last week's show the number of natural hat tricks so far this season. That also gave him a career 11 goals on the season. Goalie Thatcher Demko, 30 saves in net in the win, and Colorado goalie Mackenzie Blackwood allowed 2 goals on 24 shots to suffer his first loss since joining the team.
Kiefer Sherwood, good to see him thriving with the Canucks. I remember him with the Ducks, obviously, because he was on the Ducks, and we always remember the players with our favorite teams, but he never got this kind of production or opportunity with the Ducks. Great to see him thriving there in Vancouver.
Moving on to Tuesday, we had 10 games on the schedule. The Devils beat the Blues in St. Louis 4-1. Jesper Bratt and Stefan Nason each scored their 14th goals of the season for New Jersey, while goalie Jacob Markstrom made 20 saves in net in the victory. Capitals were upset by the Blackhawks 3-2. Chicago scoring all 3 of their goals in the third period, capped by Ryan Donato's game winner.
That is one. You mentioned the Capitals on a 10-game road winning streak. They get it snapped one night. They go into the worst team in the league other than Buffalo and lose again on back-to-back nights. And that is why I don't bet on sports, because there's no way I would have seen that coming.
No, nobody would. The Jets got by the Sharks in San Jose 4-3. Kyle Connor, 2 goals, numbers 18 and 19 for him. Mark Scheifele gets his 17th, and Adam Lowry netted the game winner with under 2 minutes to play. Sharks star rookie Macklin Celebrini, number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, gets his 11th goal of the season in the loss. Battle of two struggling and underachieving teams. The Predators shut out the Rangers 2-0 behind 25 saves from goalie UC Saros. New York had lost 11 of 15 at that point, all in regulation. And I had suggested on last week's show this was a loser leave town match with the losing head coach being fired. Well, that didn't happen. But the Rangers' struggles obviously continuing.
Yeah, this was and the Predators, they won, and I've got some Ranger fans that I know at work that were saying leave it to the Rangers to make the Predators look good. They looked good, but the Rangers just looked they looked really bad. And you did wonder, I don't watch every game, but you got to wonder if you're a Rangers fan watching every single night, at what point is enough enough? And with the roster freeze and with the coaching freeze coming on here at the holidays, how much longer are they going to wait to see? Because these minor moves, the Kaako trade, the Trouba trade, that's not going to fix what's ailing them. And they got to do something drastic. And even, I'm not saying Laviolette is to blame, but you have to try something at some point, right?
Yes. Look, I'm shocked he wasn't fired after this game, to be honest with you. I'm shocked he's still on the job, but he is for now. We'll see how much longer it lasts.
You fire me. These pictures go to the press.
The Canadians roll over the Sabres 6-1, extending Buffalo's season-long losing streak to 11 in a row. Patrik Laine continued his hot play. We're going to talk a lot about him over this week. Since he joined the team after suffering the injury in the preseason, he had 3 goals for the hat trick in this one. All 3 goals on the power play. He now has, at this point, 6 goals in 7 games, and they're all power play goals. Montreal goalie Sam Montembeault, 21 saves in net. But Patrik Laine, Doug, you called this. I said you would give me the option when we're talking the offseason. Do you want Patrik Laine on your team? I said no. You said yes, and right now you are definitely winning that argument.
Well, he's one of the very few players that has had a hat trick for 3 different franchises. He's the 8th active player to do so, and he leads that group with 11 hat tricks overall. Shout out to Kyle Palmieri with exactly 1 hat trick for both the Ducks, Devils, and Islanders. I should say all 3 of those. And then we've got the list on the screen there. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll go over it in a second. But Laine also tied Tyler Toffoli, Shell Dolan, Bobby Smith, Craig Laughlin for the most goals overall by a Canadiens player through his first 7 games with the franchise since the expansion era of 1967. So he's got 6 goals in his first 7 games. That ties the franchise record for most. And as I said, the 8th active player with hat tricks for 3 different franchises. David Perron has done it, Artemi Panarin, Tyler Toffoli, Frank Vetrano, Ryan O'Reilly, Jordan Eberle, Kyle Palmieri. But none of them have had 11 hat tricks. And Laine is on an absolute heater. And look, if he's just a power play specialist, so be it. I mean, how many of our teams around the league are struggling on the power play? And you add a guy that has an absolute laser of a shot that can set up, you set the power play, you get established in the zone, you set him up for his one-timer, and you let him go to work. You let him pick corners, you let him fire pucks. It's been extremely successful. It's amazing the start that he's been on, red hot. As you said, we're going to talk more about him because he's not done this week.
No,
but my goodness, what an acquisition he has been. And the Blue Jackets, look, it wasn't working. I get it. You got to do what you got to do, but it has been a absolute genius move by the Montreal Canadiens to add him to their lineup.
More Patrik Laine coming up, but let's get back to the Buffalo Sabres, Doug. I don't know if you saw this, but before this game against Montreal, team owner Terry Pegula and GM Kevin Adams flew to Montreal to meet with the team before the game. They reportedly gave the team a vote of confidence, telling them that there's no major changes on the horizon and that the solution to their problems is in the room. I don't know the last time. We've done the show for 18 years. I don't know if I can recall an owner flying on the road to meet with his team before a game and have a chat with them.
Well, especially not to tell them nothing's happening, right? Like it'd be one thing if he was flying there to address a major change, like, hey, we're going to change the GM, we're going to change the coaching staff. I want to talk to your players directly and let you know it's coming from me. But to fly there just to say, don't worry, be happy. And when he says the solution is in this room, I wonder how many of them looked under the bench and like Where is it?
Well,
Is a player coming in? Did we sign somebody? What happened here?
Doesn't this remind you of the vote of confidence that owners and GMs will say right
Oh,
before they're getting ready to
100%.
fire somebody?
100%.
I mean,
100%.
he's not flying to meet with the team because everything's okay. Because the solutions. I mean, I get what he's trying to do, but
I think it was more to get them to relax and to say,
good luck.
You're playing tense, you're playing tight. Don't worry about it. It's not going to look. Think about your own job, and if
what job?
Yeah. Well,
Too
exactly.
Soon, man.
Let's go back. Let's go back 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And you can. This is my point. If your boss's boss walks in the room when you're on a road trip or on something, that's never a good thing. It's not a good surprise. Like, hey, look, everybody, Terry Pagula's here and the GM.
I wonder what they want.
Yeah, hot damn.
Give us all raises.
Yeah, everybody close your eyes. I'm going to tap somebody on the shoulder and they're out of here. No, it's never a good thing. And then you follow that up by going out and getting boat raced by the Canadiens, who are not a great team. I mean, my goodness, I would have been waiting for them when they got back in there and been like, forget what I said. Major changes are coming. Or just been like, drinking heavily and just, finishing off a bottle of scotch and throw it at the wall over their heads as they come in the door. Yeah, sons of, I don't know, man. It's bad times for Buffalo right now. We're going to get into it in a little bit more for them, but I would not greet that as a positive if I was a player and I saw the owner and the GM walk into the locker room on a road trip unexpectedly.
Yeah. Also on Tuesday, we had the Hurricanes shutting out the Islanders 4-0. Carolina netminder Pyotr Kochetkov, 32 saves for his first ever NHL shutout.
How about this? That game and that win gave the Carolina Hurricanes 20 wins on the season, which makes them the third Eastern Conference team with 20 wins at that point. And all three are in the Metropolitan Division. My goodness, at that point, all three were there. I mean, that is one stacked division, man.
Bruins edge the Flames in Calgary in overtime 4-3. David Pastrnak gets the overtime game winner for Boston, who closed out the game with 3 unanswered goals to rally for the win for Pasta, his 11th career overtime game winner. Also, former Flame Elias Lindholm had a goal in his back against his old team, first game back in Calgary. Boston had won 6 of 8 at that point. Penguins edge the Kings 3-2 in overtime. Rickard Rakell deflects in the game winner in overtime. Adrian Kempe had his 16th goal of the season and loss for LA, which reached the 40-point mark by getting that overtime loss with 1 point. Senators started a 9-game road trip with a 3-0 win in Seattle over the Kraken. Linus Ullmark, 30 saves for Ottawa, which had won 4 in a row at that point. Ullmark improving to 6-0-1 in his last 7 starts at that point as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about Ullmark in a second, but that was, as you mentioned, a season-long road trip. I mean, you only play 41 road games total, and 9 of them are on this one road trip. So that's basically 25% of your entire road schedule is this road trip right here. And it is broken up by the holidays, so that helps them with the travel. But my goodness, what a hell of a road trip for the Senators as they go all around North America.
And finally, on Tuesday, the Lightning down the Blue Jackets 5-3. Braden Point scored his 21st goal of the season, with Jake Guentzel adding his 18th in the win. For Guentzel, he had scored a goal in 7 straight games at that point.
And that ties him for the third longest goal-scoring streak in a player's first season with the team since 1992-93, which was kind of the new expansion era after the 67 expansion. And as we look at this list on YouTube, check out Teemu Selanne with 2 streaks of goal scoring streaks in the same season in his rookie year with the Winnipeg Jets. He has the longest, 9, and the tied for the second longest with 8. Brian Bradley with the other one. And that's the amazing thing is Jake Guentzel with 7 games, goal scoring streak with a new team isn't even the team record. Brian Bradley did it with the Lightning back in 92-93 with an 8-game scoring streak. The others on that list, Dave Andreychuk, Alex Mogilny, Luc Robitaille, and Alexander Ovechkin. So some great names, and Jake Guentzel, man, has paid immediate dividends. And if you thought you were going to miss the offense of Steven Stamkos, Jake Guentzel has certainly filled in at a much less significant cap hit, and has been a great acquisition by the Tampa Bay Lightning, and a loss, certainly, for the Pittsburgh Penguins in their goal production.
Moving on to Wednesday, we had 5 games. The Maple Leafs beat the Stars in Dallas 5-3. Toronto scored 2 goals in 16 seconds during a 3-goal second period. One of them was William Nylander's 19th of the season. He also added an empty net goal to reach the 20-goal mark for Toronto. Doug, I have a question for you. Can you think of any NHL fans of note for certain teams? Are there any fans around the NHL that you can think of that you kind of know? Of course, we had the Green Men back in Vancouver back in the day. They were certainly noticeable. So the Dallas Stars,
the Dallas Stars have the bang guy, the bang on the glass guy behind the glass.
Have you heard?
And the other guy that I can think of is, but he's a Ducks guy, and they always cut to him behind for a camera. He knows they're cutting to him. He's playing to the camera now, but that's the only guy I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I did see that the bang guys disappeared, and people have been wondering whatever happened to that guy. He was always
disappeared from games or disappeared in general.
He's disappeared from games.
Okay,
kind of in general. So we've come to find out that Nick Morak is the bang guy's name. He's in jail. He was involved in a traffic accident. Once the police came to take a look at it, they found out you have a warrant for your arrest.
Really?
Yeah. He claims, and he posted this on his X account, that there was a miscommunication because his lawyer had died. He had a previous DUI, and apparently he didn't. I don't know if he didn't check in or he did something to violate his probation or whatever.
Sounds like he got in another accident.
Yeah, he claims it was a miscommunication because his lawyer died. But he's away for a while serving jail time. So no bang guy in Dallas for a little while.
Wow. That is quite a story. I mean, I got to think that's if he was a wanted person, right? There's a warrant out for his arrest. And he's known commodity on TV. You know where he's going to be for every Stars home game. Go get him if he's actually wanted.
Well, I don't guess that the probation violation put him on the list of the biggest outlaws
most wanted
in Dallas. But yeah, so people were like, "Whatever happened to that guy? He's always at the games."
Well, how long is he in jail for? I mean,
I don't know.
How long has he been missing?
I guess long enough that people have noticed, and he needed to. He felt compelled to comment on why he's been missing from the Dallas Stars.
And we should clarify that he sits behind the goal.
Yeah.
And he bangs on the glass. And I believe he puts up a sign that says bang when they score a goal or something, right? That's why they call him the bang guy.
Correct.
It's not just because of his traffic accidents and DUIs.
That's right.
Although that also plays into it.
Good, yeah.
Look out, here comes the bang guy.
Multiple meetings there.
Liquored up. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. The Panthers rolled over the Wild in Minnesota 6-1. Florida got a pair of goals from Matthew Tkachuk, while goalie Sergei Bobrovsky made 26 saves in net. Ducks knock off the team with the most points in the NHL, the Jets, 3-2. Frank Petrano had a pair of goals, including the game-tying goal in the third period. And then Troy Terry won it in overtime with 26 seconds left as Anaheim snapped an 8-game losing skid against the Jets. In the loss, Mark Scheifele gets his 18th goal of the season for Winnipeg.
Again, why I don't bet. Did not see that coming. As a Ducks fan, no chance, I thought, and very pleasantly surprised. Sports are very unpredictable. You never know what you're going to get.
Utah Hockey Club edged the Canucks 3-2 in overtime. Defenseman Mikhail Sergachev gets his second overtime game winner of the season. Dylan Guenther scored his 14th of the year in the win, and Utah improved to 5-0-1 in their last 6 games. Vancouver goalie Thatcher Demko took the loss, dropped to 1-1-1 on the season since returning from his injury. Red Wings outscored the Flyers 6-5. Patrick Kane gets the game winner in the third period, his 475th career goal. Alex DeBrincat and Lucas Raymond each scored their 13th goals of the season. In the loss of Philadelphia, Travis Konechny gets his 16th of the year.
Actually, it was a 6-4 final, my friend. But
what did I say?
6-5.
Oh, 6-4.
The Flyers at that point were 14-4, which means I want them to lose their next 10 games in overtime or a shootout to have a record of 14-14-14.
I don't. Good luck with that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Probably not.
I already know it didn't happen. but I was hoping it at the time.
On Thursday, we had 9 games to tell you about. The Pacific Division leading Golden Knights knock off the Canucks 3-1. William Karlsson's third period goal was the game winner. Aiden Hill, 19 saves in net to improve to 14-5-2 on the season. Blue Jackets surprised the Devils, who at the time were the top team in the Metropolitan Division. 4-2, Columbus with the win. Sean Monahan, a 2-goal game, while goalie Elvis Merzlikins stopped a season-high 40 shots.
My goodness.
Oilers beat the Bruins 3-2 in overtime. Connor McDavid's 15th goal of the season tied it late in the third, and then defenseman Matthias Ekholm won it in overtime as Edmonton rallied from down 2-0 to get the win. Leon Draisaitl, 3 assists to reach the 900 career point mark.
And he is the 5th fastest player born outside of North America to get to 900 points. The 4 guys that have done it faster than him, he did it, Leon Draisaitl did it in 751 games. 4th fastest was Nikita Kucherov, obviously an active player with the Lightning, in 743 games. Jaromir Jagr was able to do it in 681 games. Jari Kurri, no surprise there, with Wayne Gretzky, 632 games. And Peter Stastny, 599 games to get to 900 points. That is cooking back in the day for Peter. And my goodness. But Leon Draisaitl in today's game where scoring is much less than it was per game, although we've seen some high scores here this season, it's better than it was. But 900 points in 751 games is a good clip. And as you said, he's signed long-term. Connor McDavid's going to be there long-term. He's got a good chance of reaching 2,000 points by the time it's all said and done.
Penguins knocked off the Predators 5-4 in overtime. Pittsburgh's Brian Rust, a 4-point night. It included a pair of goals, including the overtime game winner. Sidney Crosby, also a 4-point night with a goal and 3 assists. Pittsburgh hanging around for a wild card spot, 8-1 in their last 11 at that point. Nashville dropped to 1-7 in overtime games this season. Kings outscored the Flyers 7-3. Anze Kopitar and Kevin Fiala each had a pair of goals. LA had won 8 of 10 at that point.
I was going to say they are 8-1-1 since their embarrassing loss to the Sharks, which seemed to be a turning point for them. They left that game licking their wounds and have been on a tear ever since.
Lightning down the Blues 3-1. Andrei Vasilevsky, 31 saves in net, while Nick Perbix scored the game winner. Nikita Kucherov, 2 assists to tie Martin St. Louis for the second most assists in franchise history with 588. Jake Gensel's 7-game goal streak ended when he missed twice at an empty net late in the game. One of them, I still don't know how he missed it. But that's...
Well, the puck didn't go in.
Yeah. I mean, it was... I think honestly, you know how we say this, but I really do think I could have scored on that one. But somehow he missed it. Tampa Bay had won 6 of 7 at that point, though.
That would have been, it's amazing that you have the goal scoring streak that you do, and then you get a couple of chances like that to an empty net, and they don't find their way in, and when it's over, man.
Senators edge the Flames in Calgary 3-2 in overtime. Brady Tkachuk gets the OT game winner for Ottawa, his 16th of the season, and helped the Senators extend their winning streak to 5 in a row.
Linus Ullmark had 29 saves in that one, and he had an assist on the overtime game winner. That improved him to 7-0-0 in his last 7 appearances, dating back to December 5th. And in those 7 games, Eddie, let me know if these stats are very good. He's got a goals against average of 0.99, a save percentage of .967, and 2 shutouts in his last 7 games. My goodness, that is the goaltending they thought they were getting when they signed Linus Ullmark. Even that exceeds any expectations they may have had for what he could do with their team, but that has got them on a red-hot streak.
Avalanche beat the Sharks in San Jose 4-2. Joel Kiviranta scored a pair of third-period goals to help Colorado get the road win. Mikko Rantanen scored in the third period, his 19th of the year, and Mackenzie Blackwood gets the win in net over Alexander Georgiev in a battle of 2 goalies that were recently traded for each other. One of them's got the Sharks goal. The other one still wearing his old teal mask. I think Blackwood still has the teal mask he's wearing with the Avalanche gear, but Georgiev's already gotten into his teal mask, and he's looking like he's a part of the team there.
Well, I think he took it. He took the Archer's Herbe mask out of the team museum.
Oh no, he did, and not that old birdcage. No. I wish he did. That would be amazing.
That would be fantastic. It would be nice if you saw more goalies paying homage to goalies of the past with stuff like that. They always come up with their own image and stuff like that. And I don't think Mackenzie Blackwood was, if anything, he owed the Sharks 2 points for getting him out of San Jose and onto a cup contender. He should have let them win. That's not a revenge game. That should have been a thank you game.
And one final game from Thursday, Blackhawks to beat the Kraken 3-1. Ilya Mikheyev scored a pair of goals for Chicago, and goalie Arvid Soderblom made 27 saves in net as the Blackhawks had a modest 3-game winning streak at the time. One other note for the Hawks veteran goalie Peter Mrazek, off of injured reserve. He was the backup in this game to Arvid Soderblom, so we'll see him on the ice sometime soon. And in his Seattle debut, Kappo Kaako, no points, 13 minutes and 15 seconds of ice time. Moving over to Friday, we had 7 games. The Maple Leafs beat the Sabres 6-3, extending Buffalo's losing streak to 12 in a row. In his first start in nearly 21 months, former Stanley Cup winning goalie Matt Murray had 25 saves in the win. He was called up after the injury to Anthony Stolarz. William Nylander had an empty net goal, his 21st of the season. Austin Matthews added his 11th, and John Tavares picked up his 600th career assist as the Leafs had won 5 of 6 at that point. Also, an update on Anthony Stolarz. MRI on his knee revealed no structural damage, but he is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks after undergoing a procedure to remove loose bodies within his knee.
That never sounds pleasant.
No.
I mean, I know what they're saying, but
yeah,
that never sounds good. It is interesting. You know, you would think that Matt Murray might be a Masterton candidate for dedication to hockey, for coming back after all the injuries he's had. But I think it's dedication to paycheck, as he is getting paid a lot of money to play goalie. And I was happy to see him get back in the NHL and get a win, even if it was against, I think he may have faced tougher competition in the AHL this season than the Buffalo Senators are putting out on the ice right now. It's just saying.
Capitals down the Hurricanes 3-1, a big matchup. Connor McMichael scored his 16th goal of the season, while Charlie Lindgren had 23 saves in net. Hurricanes dropped to 0-4-1 in their last 5 road games with that loss in DC. Canadians edged the Red Wings 4-3. Patrik Laine scored the game-winning goal on the power play in the third period. That's 7 goals in 8 games, all power play goals.
He is the 7th player to score each of his first 7 goals with the franchise on the power play, dating back to 1933. I don't know about the stats before that, but that's just what they told us. The others, some great names here. Risto Siltanen, he had 10 with Quebec. Marek Zidlicki had 10 straight goals, all on the power play with Minnesota. Dwight Bialowicz with
question mark at the end of his name.
That's how it was pronounced.
Mm-hmm.
Victor Olofsson, 8 goals with Buffalo, and Larry Sakharuk with St. Louis. Oh, and Esa Tikkanen also had 7 with Vancouver. So the 7th player to score each of his first 7 goals with the franchise on the power play since 1933. And he's also tied for 4th in franchise history on an original 6 team for most power play goals in a calendar month. And the names he's keeping pace with are legendary, guys. We'll get to that in a second because he's going to continue scoring here in the near future.
Yes, he is. Continuing on Friday, we had the Panthers edging the Blues 2-1 in overtime. Florida captain Alexander Barkov gets the overtime game winner on the power play. Sergei Bobrovsky, 26 saves in net. Rangers beat the Stars in Dallas 3-1. Igor Shesterkin had 41 saves, including 23 saves against the power play. Dallas had 7 power plays in this game and did not score a goal. It included a 5-minute major on Matt Rempe, which we'll tell you more about in a minute. The Rangers penalty kill, not only killing off those 7 Dallas power plays, but they scored a shorthanded goal as well. Riley Smith with a shorthanded goal. Just the 4th win in the last 18 games for New York.
That's crazy. 7 power plays on home ice against a team that has been absolutely awful in recent weeks. And you go over. And not only do you go over, you give up the game-winning goal shorthanded. Well, or the game-tying goal shorthanded.
Yeah. And hard to believe the Rangers are the best penalty-killing team in the NHL. It's shocking that they're actually that good at something and yet still struggling. As for Matt Rempe, he gets hit with an 8-game suspension from the Department of Player Safety for the hit on Miro Heiskanen of the Stars. Now, he had previously been suspended for 4 games for an elbow to the head of Jonas Siegenthaler of New Jersey, so he's a repeat offender. In handing down the 8-game ban, it was stated that Rempe committed 2 penalties on the play against Heiskanen, boarding and elbowing. It's the longest suspension handed down in the NHL since Tom Wilson's 20-game suspension in 2018.
For all the talk of this guy, and it's a name that I think a lot of hockey fans know, Matt Rempe. He's only played 22 games. That's it in his entire NHL career. He's been suspended, as you mentioned, for 12 now. So this is a guy that I don't think has a place in the NHL. He's massive, 6'9", 260 pounds. He clearly has no ability to control himself in his aggression because this was his first game. And since getting called up, and he immediately goes out there and in just over 5 minutes of ice time and drills somebody clearly from behind. I mean, he's just a guy it's like a Neanderthal lawyer, the caveman lawyer in Saturday Night Live. He's just a dude from a different era, like they thawed him out. He's only 22 years old. Maybe he can change, but the difference with Matt Cook and Matt Wilson or Tom Wilson was that they could play the game. I don't know that this guy can play a regular shift and contribute if he's not playing violently, and his violence is over the line often enough that his next one's going to be probably a 12-game suspension.
Your strange NHL rules confuse me. The unfrozen caveman lawyer impression.
Yes.
You're probably better at it than I am, but I thought I'd give it a try.
It's not, it was worth hearing anyway. Definitely look that up if you're not familiar. Phil Hartman, rest in peace.
Utah Hockey Club edged the Wild in Minnesota 2-1. Dylan Guenther, 2 goals, numbers 15 and 16, including the game winner on the power play in the third period. Kirill Velmelka, 28 saves as Utah won its 4th straight and 7th straight on the road. And the Avalanche beat the Ducks in Anaheim 4-2. Kel McCarr scores the game winner on the power play. Nathan McKinnon had his 14th of the season with an empty net goal.
Cale Makar is in 2024, as we get ready to close the book on that year, calendar year. He has 23 goals and 91 points since January 1st, the 4th defenseman in NHL history to get 90 points in a calendar year multiple times. He also had 94 back in 2022. He joins Paul Coffey, who did it 8 times, Bobby Orr, who did it 5 times, and Ray Bourque, who did it 4 times, as the only defenseman in NHL history to have 90 points in a calendar year multiple times. And I don't think this is Cale Makar's last. I'm betting he has 90-plus points in 2025 because that guy is amazing.
Moving on to an always busy Saturday. We had 11 games. We'll start with the Jets blanking the Wild 5-0 behind Connor Hellebuck's 19-save shutout, his 41st career shutout. He also leads the league right now with 4 shutouts and is your wins leader, your goals against average leader, and your save percentage leader. Other than that, he's not very good. The Jets leading the NHL with the number 1 power play. We talked about the number 1 penalty kill with the Rangers. Winnipeg, though, with the top power play unit, they scored 2 with the man advantage in the victory to extend their winning streak over Minnesota to 8 in a row. And with that win, the Jets wrap up a series sweep of Minnesota. They've already played all their regular season games against the Wild, 3-0 this season against Minnesota. As for the Wild, they're struggling right now. They've lost 4 in a row, and they are now 5 points behind Winnipeg in the Central Division standings. Jesper Wallstedt was in net for Minnesota as number 1 goalie Philip Gustafsson is dealing with a lower body injury.
Has the clock struck midnight on the Minnesota Wild's Cinderella run, Eddie? Because we were not believers in them before the season began. We did not think this team would be elite. We thought they would be in the running for a wild card spot, but certainly not a lock. But they got off to such a torrid start, you couldn't help but believe in what they were doing. And now, as you mentioned, a rough week. They get shut out here. They get beat on home ice by the Utah Hockey Club with only 1 goal. Before that, they get blown out at home by the Florida Panthers with only scoring 1 goal. So that's 2 goals scored in their last 3 games, 2 of which on home ice. I know that this is not going to be forever. They're going to find themselves eventually start winning games, but the pace they were on was absolutely torrid. And they have, as you said, fallen off. Winnipeg, even with the regulation loss to the Ducks, now 5 points clear of the Wild atop the division. And I got to think it's going to be tough for the Wild to catch them. Keeping pace was tough enough. Now catching and passing them, as you said, with the season series already over You don't have those 4-point nights anymore. That's going to be difficult, I would think.
Well, we'll see how Minnesota does after the holiday break, if they can get out of it. Every team goes through its ups and downs. We'll see. It certainly is concerning, I think, if you're a Minnesota Wild fan. Senators edge the Canucks 5-4 in Vancouver. Jake Sanderson gets the overtime game winner for Ottawa, which extended its winning streak to 6 in a row. Shane Pinto had 2 goals. Josh Norris gets his 13th of the season. Brock Besser, 2 goals in the loss for the Canucks as they continue to not be very good at home, 6-7-5 on home ice at that point. Also dealing with something off the ice, but you wanted to talk about Jake Sanderson before we get into that.
Yeah, Jake Sanderson netted the 3rd fastest overtime goal in franchise history. Matt Duchene scored 7 seconds into overtime back in 2018. Josh Norris scored 9 seconds into overtime back in 2021. But Sanderson, 15 seconds in, getting the 3rd fastest overtime goal in franchise history. He's also collected 6 points during their 6-game winning streak since December 11th, tied for the 2nd most among all defensemen during that span. And it ties him for the 6th fastest overtime goal by a defenseman in NHL history. Now, again, most of these are very recent because the overtime rules changed to 3-on-3 in recent years, so that made it a lot easier. But the only ones that have scored a overtime goal, a defenseman, faster, and you tell me how many of these you remember, Eddie. Kyle Comiskey with the Avalanche, 9 seconds in. Victor Hedman of the Lightning, 10 seconds. Seth Jones with the Blue Jackets in 10 seconds. Jeff Petrie with the Canadiens in 14 seconds. And the one I'm curious, do you remember, Eddie? First of all, do you remember a defenseman named Aaron Miller for your LA Kings? And do you remember him scoring an overtime goal 14 seconds in 23 years ago?
I absolutely remember Aaron Miller. I absolutely do not remember his overtime game winner. As a matter of fact, he was very much a defensive defenseman. He did not score many goals in his career. But yes, I do remember Aaron Miller.
Yeah, he was the stalwart defensive defenseman for a long. I'd have to go back and watch how that happened. How did he get a puck on his stick 14 seconds in and score a goal? But
I'm guessing it was a
one.
face-off win, and he just shot it immediately, and it went in. Would be my guess.
It has. You would think so, or something, or he's the trailer, and they hit him on the trailer, and he wristed it in. I don't know. That I might have to go back and watch that one. But good for Jake Sanderson for a quick overtime winner.
So back to the Canucks. Apparently, I don't know if you know any more about this than I do, but apparently this is a big deal in Vancouver. Some sort of feud between Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. I guess they don't like each other, and maybe there was an altercation in the locker room. Head coach Rick Tocchet and Captain Quinn Hughes did address this in the media, and Pettersson was asked about it. He said basically the media was making excrement up and stormed off. And then after the game tonight on Sunday, JT Miller was asked about it, and he said basically this is a media creation, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say that. Something must have happened. I don't think anyone's denying that these two guys don't seem to like each other, but certainly the media can blow things out of proportion, but clearly there's something going on between those two players. But I mean, look, in every team, in every sport, not everyone likes each other.
Right.
People we work with, there's people we have a working relationship with, but we don't care much for outside of that, and we probably don't associate with them outside of work. So I don't know what's going on with these two, if it really is a situation or not. Are they dividing the locker room, people picking sides? I don't know, but it is a big story right now in Vancouver.
Yes, it is. And that's a Canadian media market casualty. You know, if this was exact same situation in Carolina, I don't even think anybody would know about it outside of the locker room. I think it would be handled. But the Canadian media is tenfold what the American media is for NHL teams. So much like you would see for an NBA team or an NFL team here in the United States, that's how they are covered up there. So my understanding is that they were in line for food and JT Miller was getting his, and Pius Suter knocked the tray out of his hands and said, and, you know, kind of pointed over to Elias Pettersson and said, he doesn't like you. I don't like you either. And then it went from there.
Yeah.
No, I have no idea, but I tend to think it's somewhere between the two. Like the media is making it out to be that these guys are sworn enemies and there was a fist fight and, you know, I'll kill you, that kind of stuff, like the opening of a murder mystery. And then the teammates and everybody else are saying it's just no big deal. So as you said, It's entirely possible that they don't get along. They don't like each other for whatever reason. But I don't think that's that uncommon in a locker room full of people of different personalities and different backgrounds. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, and I don't think it's going to affect them on the ice. But we'll see. And if it does, then the Canucks management will address that one way or another by making a trade or doing something to get the peace going here, because you can't have something that's going to divide your locker room. If there is, in fact, a rift to where you've got JT Miller and his friends on the team on one side and Elias Pettersson and his friends on the team on the other side, you can't have that. But you also can't have a player get traded because another guy didn't like him. Everybody else on the team liked this guy. Now JT Miller's not there or Elias Pettersson's not there. And everybody knows the only reason they traded that guy is because you didn't like him and we're losing games now. So it's a tricky situation, but I got to think that they will, they'll handle it internally. We'll never even hear about it until the books come out in 10, 15 years from the guys that are on this team. The key for the Phil Giuseppe book is going to be a tell-all when he finally retires.
Yeah, can't wait for that one. The Oilers rally late to knock off the Sharks 3-2 in overtime. Mattias Ekholm scored with 18 seconds left in regulation to tie it. And then with 18 seconds left in overtime, Leon Draisaitl gets his NHL-leading 24th goal of the season, 17th career overtime game winner for Draisaitl, most in franchise history. Tough loss for San Jose young goaltender Yaroslav Askarov. He made 39 saves in this one, including 23 in the second period alone. We had a couple of guys this week got shutouts with less than that in the entire game. But great performance by him. Unfortunately, it comes in the overtime loss. Oilers had won 10 of 11 against San Jose at that point. Bruins had a win over the Sabres. 13 straight losses for Buffalo as they go into the Christmas break. They lose 3-1. Morgan Geekie gets the game winner on the power play with 1:45 left in regulation. Jonas Korpisalo, 19 saves in net in the win. Buffalo, again, 13 straight losses. Their last win, Doug, November 23rd.
I was going to say, when they won that game on November 23rd, so it's now been a full month since they won a game, and more so by the time they next take the ice. They were 11-9-1 after that win. They beat the Sharks to complete a sweep of the California road trip. Remember that? They beat the Ducks, the Kings, and the Sharks. Not an easy task these days, especially with the Kings playing well, but they were 11-9-1 after that game. They are 0-10-3 since. And the memes are going around of kids crying as they open up their presents and people painting in, Sabres tickets as the gift. And I saw something that said, if you donate blood in Buffalo, you'll get tickets to a Sabres game. And somebody said, please don't discourage people from donating blood. It's gotten bad in Buffalo to the point that they are a meme, they're a joke, and it's sad to see. We're going to talk a little bit about it with Pete Weber, who's a former Sabres announcer and a Buffalo native as well. But that it's been bad times in Buffalo for sure, and hard to believe they've gone a full month since their last win in the NHL.
Yeah, and the playoff drought looks like it's a lock for another season.
100%. Yeah. I mean, unless they could turn it around and win 13 straight. But they were, 11-9-1 was looking pretty good. And now, my goodness, 11-19-4 at this point.
Canadians beat the Red Wings 5-1 in the second of back-to-back meetings in a home-and-home series. Patrik Laine scores his 8th goal in 9 games, and of course it was on the power play. All 8 goals he has scored this season are power play goals. The New York Islanders as a team have 11 power play goals in 34 games. Laine by himself, 9 games, is now tied for second in the NHL in power play goals.
Yeah, he trails only Braden Point for the league lead in power play goals. Braden Point has 11. He becomes the 5th player to score each of his first 8 tallies with the franchise on the man advantage since 1933. Follows Risto Siltanen. Back, I mentioned him with Quebec, Marek Zidlicki, Dwight Belois, Victor Olofsson. I mentioned all of those earlier, but they have all obviously in their first season, their first 8 goals were all on the power play. It's the longest stretch of power play goals by a player to begin their tenure with the Canadiens in franchise history, and it doubled the previous record holder, which was Mark Recchi, with 4 power play goals back in 94-95. We were not doing this show back then. It's his 8th goal of the season, as you mentioned, tying a franchise record for most power play goals in a month with the other guys that have done it are Guy Lafleur, Mats Naslund, Yvon Cornier. So incredible talent, or incredible company there. And he sets the record for most consecutive team power play goals. He's scored the last 8 power play goals the Canadiens have scored, in addition to just being on a red hot. And that is a new record since 1933, beating Phil Esposito, Bronco Horvath, Nell Stewart. Eddie remembers Nell Stewart from when he was a kid back with the Americans in 1936. That was your first jersey, I believe. Recent players that have had a similar streak: Thomas Vanek, Peter Prussia, Andy Sutton with the Thrashers. My goodness, Joe Sakic, Mario Lemieux, Mike Gardner, Bernie Nichols. But Patrik Laine is on a historic heater on the power play, and the confidence that he has to have when he goes over the boards as soon as that power play starts. Get out there, get in your spot, line it up, and let it fly, man. It is absolutely amazing. And as you said, a one-man power play machine, because when you've got teams that only have 11 and you have 8 and you've only played 9 games all season, that is amazing. And they still have games to play here. He can continue adding to this record before the end of December, and we'll see. When he finally scores a regular strength or an even strength goal, I think the Canadiens fans are going to be disappointed. If he scores an even strength goal, it's going to be, oh man, because this guy is a power play machine.
Memo to other teams: don't leave him on the power play.
Well,
let's go boxing one from the old NBA.
Honestly, I was thinking exactly that. Like, I want to talk to a coach and I want to ask them, why not do that? Why not assign somebody to go stand next to Patrik Laine and make it a 4-on-3, basically, and make somebody else beat you? But do not let that guy get his one-timer off. I mean, absolutely. Why not?
I mean, at least overplay to his side, because he's just on that one side all the time, just firing off that one-timer from the face-off dot. So,
yep.
Golden Knights just keep winning. They beat the Kraken 6-2. 6 goals from 6 different players. Brett Howden gets his 13th. Vegas had won 7 of 8 at that point. Ilya Samsonov, 21 saves. He's 8-3-1. No matter who they throw in net, they just win. Meanwhile, Seattle netminder Philip Grubauer took the loss. He's 3-10 on the season.
That's not good. And you mentioned Vegas. They are, I think, quietly putting together an incredible season.
It is quietly.
They're not getting a lot of publicity around the league. They're not getting a lot of attention. They're not putting up a lot of splashy stats, but they are incredibly efficient. And Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, and Yvonne, can't remember his last name. You're going to, or
Dorfeoff?
No, he didn't play in this game for whatever reason. Ivan Barbashev. He was a scratch in this game due to illness, I think. But they are absolutely red hot when they are lined up together. And you talk about Buffalo struggling, and then you look over and you see Jack Eichel doing what he's doing. And you just, why did we not give this guy? And I know they got Alex Tuck, and I know they got a good trade for him, but it's got to be frustrating. And they are very good. As you said, it doesn't matter who they lose. They lost Jonathan Marchessault. They lose defensive depth. Doesn't matter. They plug people in, and everything's working well for them right now. And they have been very consistent. Adin Hill, Ilya Samsonov, both equally good in net, it seems. Production up and down the lineup, solid team defense. Very, very good team for Vegas this year. Very consistent.
Devils shut out the Penguins 3-0 behind goalie Jacob Markstrom. He only had to make 12 saves to get the shutout in this one. He's 7-0-1 in his last 8 starts. New Jersey captain Nico Hischier factored into all 3 goals, scoring a goal his 17th with 2 assists, and Stefan Noesen scored his career-high 15th goal of the year.
Another former Duck, Stefan Noesen. Good to see him doing well, but 12 shots total. As you mentioned, Askarov sees 23 in one period.
Yes.
This Jacob Markstrom sees 12 all night. 5 in the first, 4 in the second, 3 in the third. If they had continued playing, it would have been 2 shots in the fourth, 1 in the fifth, and none after that. My goodness. Wake up, Pittsburgh. The game starts right now. I'm going to look and see did anybody have more than 1 shot? Oh my goodness. 3 of them were from Cody Glass.
They called him
25% of
Mr.
your
Glass.
shots, 25% of your shots were just from him. Come on
Crazy. With
now.
that talent, with that offensive talent.
That's what I'm saying. Crosby only one, Malkin none. That can't happen. You got to, I mean, and it's amazing because as the game goes on and TV timeouts, guys, any opportunity to shoot, throw it on net. Let's at least make him work. You never know what's going to get tipped in or a rebound. And they still couldn't get it done. That's amazing.
Islanders surprised the Maple Leafs with a 6-3 win in Toronto. New York had 6 different goal scorers. Anthony Duclair back in the Islander lineup. He had missed 28 games due to injury, had an assist in 15 minutes and 14 seconds on ice. William Nylander, 2 goals in the loss, numbers 22 and 23. Austin Matthews did not play in this game, out with the upper body injury, and he'll get some more time to rest over the Christmas break.
You mentioned they surprised them. I don't know that it was. I think the Islanders have done pretty well against the Maple Leafs in recent years. I'm going to look it up real quick, but I think going into that, I read a stat that they've actually been pretty successful against them in recent games.
Don't know why. That's odd. Flyers beat the Blue Jackets 5-4 in overtime. Owen Tippett with a goal in regulation and the overtime game winner to give Philadelphia its only lead of the game. The only time they led was when it was over. Morgan Frost, a pair of goals. And Doug, you had mentioned that when the Blue Jackets played in Calgary, it would be the last Gaudreau brothers tribute. Actually, no, the Flyers had a ceremony to honor the Gaudreau brothers, and the Gaudreau family was on hand. The Gaudreau family from New Jersey, but they have ties to Philadelphia. It's very close. Obviously, if you know the geography around there, New Jersey and Philadelphia is right there next to New Jersey. Flyers players all entered the arena wearing the high school hockey jerseys of Matthew and Johnny Gaudreau in that one. So that will probably be
the Devils will probably have one as well. Matt Barzal, his goal there, by the way, or I should say the Islanders, 5 straight games that they've beaten the Maple Leafs dating back to March 21st of 2023. So not a surprise at all. That is
I'm still surprised.
They own them. Well, you were surprised, but the Maple Leafs were not.
Predators beat the Kings 3-2 in overtime. Defenseman Nick Blankenberg scored his first goal of the season for the overtime game winner. It was his first point of the season as well. Kings did score a pair of third-period goals to get a point out of it, but they dropped to 0-5 in games beyond regulation this season, 0-4 in overtime, 0-1 in the shootout. And the Flames down the Blackhawks 6-4, 6 different goal scorers for Calgary. Jonathan Huberdeau and Nazem Kadri each get their 13th of the season. In the loss, Connor Bedard, his 8th goal of the season for Chicago. And finally, on Sunday, 6 games, and the Oilers knock off the Senators 3-1 to snap Ottawa's 6-game winning streak. Zach Hyman, who took a puck to the face earlier in the week and had his nose explode on him. It looks deformed at this point, but he's got the mask, he's got the black eyes, and he's scoring goals. 13th of the season for him on the power play was the game winner. Stuart Skinner had 21 saves in net in the win. Edmonton has won 11 of 13 as we record this show. Meanwhile,
go ahead. I was going to just say, Zach Hyman picks up where he left off. He had a 5-game goal scoring streak going into the injury. He picks up his 6th for a 6-game goal scoring streak now, a career best for him in that with that goal tonight.
Concern going into the Christmas break for Ottawa as goalie Linus Ullmark left this game after the first period with an upper body injury and did not return. Hopefully it's minor. We've mentioned he's been great for them, but again, some extra time for everybody around the NHL to heal, with no games Monday through Friday coming up next week, which will make our look ahead very, very easy to do. Capitals get by the Kings 3-1. Alexei Protas with 2 goals for Washington, numbers 13 and 14 for him. And against his old team, briefly, Pierre-Luc Dubois, 2 primary assists in the win. Logan Thompson in net, 25 saves. He's 13-2-2 on the season for the Washington Capitals, continuing to get it done without the great 8 in the lineup. It's more than obviously just him. This is a good team.
Yeah, it's a flat-out good team, and when he gets back, they're just going to get even better. They're going to have a power play threat like the Montreal Canadiens have set up on that in that same spot. But for Washington, you see the ability that they have to score goals, but I was impressed by their defense. Mm-hmm. Kings have been playing some pretty good hockey. They obviously struggled to score some goals in a couple of recent games. They exploded for a big night against Philadelphia, but impressive team defense from Washington to keep this game low scoring. And you wonder if that season with Los Angeles is going to be the aberration in Pierre-Luc Dubois' career, because he had 63 points, then 60 points in the 2 seasons before he came to LA. dips down to 40 with LA, already has 23 points on this season and had 2 assists in this one. You wonder if it was just a bad fit and it's just going to be that aberration of the worst season of his career, because he seems to be finding himself again back in now with Washington.
Certainly high expectations when he came to LA, right? He was looked at as being this big missing piece kind of a player, was going to elevate the team. Maybe that's not the expectations in Washington. He's just a guy now and he can just play without having the pressure on him. I don't know.
For sure.
Panthers knock off the Lightning in Tampa 4-2. Florida got 2 shorthanded goals on the same Lightning power play in the second period, sandwiched in between goals from Sam Reinhart, numbers 21 and 22. Florida leading the NHL with 10 shorthanded goals. Panthers improved to 10-2-1 in their last 13. In the loss for Tampa Bay, Braden Point did pick up his 22nd goal of the season. Hurricanes beat the Rangers in New York 3-1. Carolina goalie Pyotr Kochetkov had 22 saves and 2 assists in the win. Jack Roslovic gets his 14th of the season, and Carolina killed off all 4 Rangers power plays. They've now killed off 24 consecutive power play chances against over the last 9 games.
Well, between theirs and the Rangers penalty kill, the power plays didn't have much of a chance in this one. And you mentioned Kochetkov having 2 assists. He is the second goaltender in franchise history, and remember, this includes the Hartford Whalers, with 2 points in one game. The other was a Hartford Whaler, and it's a name Eddie knows well, Kay Whitmore. You remember that name, Eddie?
I do.
He had 2 assists back in 1989, back when we were still baby-faced youngsters. That is a hell of a game for Pyotr Kochetkov. It was a long time ago, unfortunately, now 35 years ago.
Avalanche down the Kraken 5-2. Joel Kiviranta, 3 goals for the hat trick. 2 of them were empty netters, but goals 8, 9, and 10 for him. And in the loss, Kappo Kaako scored his first goal as a member of the Kraken. For Colorado, they've won 7 of 10 since they've acquired their 2 new goalies, Scott Wedgwood and Mackenzie Blackwood. Nathan McKinnon had 2 assists, leads the NHL with 55 points.
Yeah, his 3rd straight multi-assist game. He is cooking.
And the Ducks got by the Utah Hockey Club 5-4 in a shootout. Anaheim rallied down 4-1 with 3 straight goals to send the game beyond regulation. Robbie Fabry had 2 goals, and Mason McTavish scores the only goal in the shootout for the loss for the Coyotes, or for the Utah hockey team. Sorry, it's still fresh enough I can make that mistake. Clayton Keller had 4 points, 2 goals, 2 assists, but the 4-game winning streak for Utah comes to an end.
That was an absolute shocker for me. They were up 4-1. If they had won that game, they would have been in a playoff position going into the Christmas break. Instead, they lose. The Ducks, the 8th team with a 3-goal comeback victory this season. The Avalanche have done it. The Golden Knights, the Blue Jackets, Sharks, Panthers, Blues, and Flames have all done it. The Ducks adding to that list, I did not see that coming. But then again, if you had told me that the Blue Jackets, Sharks, Ducks would all have a 3-goal come-from-behind victory by the time we got to the Christmas break, I wouldn't have believed that either. But very surprising. Proud of the Ducks for fighting and not giving up on that one. And Robbie Fabry with a great game with the 2 goals. Ducks, the only team in the NHL that do not have a 10-goal player on their roster.
Well, Doug, we have reached the Christmas break, and it is time to check out the standings. We're going to start.
We have not.
What?
We have games tomorrow, my friend.
What?
Yeah, we got a full day of action tomorrow.
You're kidding.
No.
I thought we had reached the Christmas break. That's disappointing.
Only your Kings. You look at it through a Kings perspective. There are 13 games tomorrow.
So tomorrow's the final day before the Christmas break?
Correct.
Oh. Well, what? We're doing the show tonight. They should have ended it. But let's take a look at the standings with 1 day left before the Christmas break. We'll start in the Metropolitan Division, where you've got the Washington Capitals sitting on top, record of 23-8-2. They have a total of 48 points, 1 more point than the New Jersey Devils, but they do have 3 games in hand. Devils 47 points. Carolina, a distant third with 43 points. Then you've got Pittsburgh with 35, Philadelphia 34, the Rangers and Islanders 33, and the Blue Jackets with 32 points. So you talked about the Metro having 3 teams with 20 wins. It's those 3 teams, and then there's a pretty big drop-off after that.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that the Islanders in 7th place, but only 2 points behind the Penguins for 4th place. So, and the Rangers being in that group just does not look right. But they've earned it. You know, they've played awful hockey in recent weeks, and to be basically at 500 33 points through 33 games, not basically exactly at 500. It's got to be embarrassing for them. It's a chance now, though, to get away. They do have one more game before the break. I believe they play tomorrow. Let me double check. Yes, they play the Devils. So it's an opportunity for them to get a couple points, go into the break feeling good about themselves, and then a whole second half of the season left to redeem themselves and get back to where they think they should be in the standings.
Keep it in the East in the Atlantic Division. You've got the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, 22-11-2, the record for 46 points, 2 more points than the Toronto Maple Leafs at 44 points. Boston has reached the 40-point mark. And you've got Tampa Bay and Ottawa each with 38 points, Montreal 31, Detroit 30, and Buffalo with 26 points.
How about the Ottawa Senators, man? 18 wins through 34 games. I know the injury to Ullmark is concerning, and that is hopefully, as you said, the Christmas break gives him opportunity to miss as few games as possible. But the fact that they are tied with Boston and Tampa Bay, granted, Tampa has played only 31 games, Ottawa's played 34, but the fact that they're tied with them going into the Christmas break or close to it is got to be invigorating for them and their players and their organization, their fan base, to be in a playoff race, to be in the thick of it, and to have a realistic shot at third of the automatic playoff berth. Forget the wild card. They're looking at an automatic playoff berth, potentially playing Toronto or Florida in the first round. That is a great place for them to be. And Montreal, Detroit, and Buffalo obviously struggling. I think their seasons are already over. They're worrying about next year, trying to build some momentum. Not officially over, of course. There's plenty of games left, but I don't see the talent on any of those three teams to turn this around. And Buffalo, I just hope they can end this losing streak. They got one more game before the Christmas break. It's at the Islanders tomorrow. I hope they can win that so that they can go into the break feeling good and not having this streak carrying around with them until Friday.
Over in the West, we'll start in the Central Division where your Winnipeg Jets lead the NHL with 49 points, a record of 24-10-1. We talked about Minnesota's struggles of late, dropping back 44 points in second place. Colorado, 42 points for third place. Then you've got Dallas and Utah tied with 38 points. St. Louis, 34 points. Nashville, 27 points. And Chicago, 26 points.
If the season ended right now, and of course it does not, as you see the games in hand that Dallas has on the teams ahead of them, 4 games in hand on Colorado. But as of right now, Dallas is not in a playoff position. They are on the outside looking in of the Western Conference wildcard spot. And that is hard to believe with a team that has as much talent as they do. 13 wins on home ice already. They've already played 18 of their 41 home games. So a lot left to go here. But man, this is going to be a very interesting division because Utah has been playing great. They fell apart here in the end. Still got a point in the loss, though, to the Ducks tonight. But they've been playing very well in recent weeks. Colorado has made 2 goaltending trades. They seem to have found their footing. Minnesota got off to a good enough start that they can go into a slump and still be in a good position. And Winnipeg seems like the real deal with the best goalie in hockey. So 5 teams that I think have a good shot at making the playoffs, but I don't think all 5 are going to make it. I'm not even sure 4 are going to make it. It's going to be a very competitive run here for that third and final playoff spot in the Central.
And finally, in the Pacific Division, Vegas Golden Knights on top, 22-8-3, the record for 47 points. Edmonton has moved into second place as they are on a roll right now, 44 points for them. My Kings now in third place with 43 points. Then you've got Vancouver and Calgary with 39, Seattle 32 points, Anaheim 30, and San Jose 28 points.
As well as your Kings played, Eddie, 8 wins in 10 games. It's amazing that they're in third and that they're only 4 points ahead of the Calgary Flames for fifth. That is very surprising, and it shows how competitive the Pacific Division is. And I think if anybody's watched the Sharks play and the Ducks play this year, I mean, look at that. The Ducks have 30 points in 32 games. That's not a bad pace. That's just below 82 points per year. So there's not a lot of easy wins in the Pacific Division. There's not a lot of cupcakes going on anymore. This is a tough division from top to bottom, a competitive division, and this is going to be an absolute dogfight. Vegas has been very good, but only 3 points up on Edmonton. The Kings playing as well as they are, third place, and looking up at the team that's knocked them out of the playoffs the last 3 years. It's a very competitive division, and going to be a fun series to watch all season long.
All right, the quick playoff pictures you mentioned in the Eastern Conference: Florida, Toronto, Boston, your top three in the Atlantic; Washington, New Jersey, Carolina, your top three in the Metro, with Tampa Bay and Ottawa right now your two wildcard teams. Pittsburgh, the first team on the outside looking in, with 35 points.
How about the Rangers having to catch and pass 3 teams now to get themselves into a playoff spot? That is hard to believe. If they miss the playoffs, what an absolute disaster with the talent and the roster that they have built.
And over in the West, your top three in the Central: Winnipeg, Minnesota, Colorado. In the Pacific, Vegas, Edmonton, LA. Your two wildcard teams come from the Pacific right now: Vancouver and Calgary. Dallas, as you mentioned, 1 point out of a playoff spot. So is Utah with 38 points.
Yeah, Dallas does have 2 games in hand on Calgary, so there is that. But still, this is going to be an absolute battle for playoff positioning. If Calgary can continue to remain competitive all season long, that is going to throw a real wrench and put some panic in some teams who may miss the playoffs that we're expecting to be potentially Stanley Cup contenders.
All right, that'll do it for our first period on the YouTube show. If you enjoyed it and you want to hear more, check out the remaining 2 periods of our show on our podcast. Search Puck Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening to the podcast, the second and third periods are coming up. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand, and we will talk to you next week with another edition of the Puck Podcast.